reform and the restructuring measures were put in place. It is sad that some of our politicians are now trying to score cheap political at the expense of the leader by unfairly criticizing this movement. And so this morning, my boss will decisively deal with the entire this stage. Let me say to you, colleagues and friends, as we indicated earlier, Minister Brown will be mounting the podium in an earnest effort to deconstruct the threadbare accusations that have been coming against the president as a result of a reform measures that she have announced. Minister Brown's position on the platform should not be construed that the government is not tolerant to opposition view. We are indeed tolerant to the views of the opposition. What we detest is the willful distortion of the president's message as a way of gaining temporary political advantage. This is unfair. And so it is now my singular honor to invite to the podium my boss, who will speak on a wide range of issues of national concern, but emphasizing the president's latest reform measures and NOCA. Minister Brown.
Let me thank Minister Jackson. Today we want to address a number of concerns, and to do so in a way we hope to encourage a national conversation around these important issues. First, we want to begin by joining our voices to many in celebrating the Lone Star. You know, we have had two turning point moments of serious note. We faced a most enemy, largely unknown, resembling a common ailment, which forced us to re-examine our cultural behavior, our innate human and I dare say Liberian values which we share to care for each other. In the height of that fight, many became doubtful and imagined that our best bet
Good afternoon, folks. And sorry I have to share this video. Kindly help us share this video to as many people as possible so that we can get people to watch. This is my first live video since the incident occurred. just want to speak to some issues, to give you an update. I wanted to have a lot of stuff to talk about before I could do this live. So kindly bear with me as I set things up here a little. Good afternoon to everyone. If you're in Liberia, that means it's good evening. It is 13 minutes past 13 minutes past 12 May there in the United States, at least on the East Coast of the United States of America in Wilmington, Delaware. Just bear with me a little. That means it's good evening. Okay, I think I'm ready now. Let me know if the audio is okay. I think the audio is. Folks, I'm Henry Costa, as you all know. For the past 7 years, going on 8, I have dedicated my life to being an advocate and a talk show host. And this has not been a struggle without struggles, without risk. But it has been the most rewarding years of my life. We have made friends, some of whom we've lost, and then we made them again. We've made enemies, oftentimes in high places. But more so, we have been privileged to earn the love, the support, unwavering support of hundreds of thousands of Liberians, if not millions of Liberians. In the last 8 months, we have experienced unprecedented support of the Liberian people. One which I never imagined I would get at this age. I want to seize this moment to register my profound thanks and appreciation to our people in Liberia, in the United States, in Europe, in other parts of Africa, and in Asia, and right across the globe, for all the support that you have given us over the years. I'm grateful. I'm deeply grateful. It assures me that it is true that there are more good people in Liberia than bad people. And the time will come when the good people shall win. And that time is coming. And it is my life's greatest honor to be with you as a soldier, marching on in this struggle, facing and dealing and grappling with its risks. And together, I am profoundly convicted that we shall finally, in the end, sing free at last, free at last. Thank God we are free at last. Our country has struggled with dictatorship for so many years. And just when we felt that the days of dictatorship, of tyranny, and brutal clampdown on those who speak freely against what they see that are not right were over, then we have a shocking reminder that dictatorship is not in our past. It lives with us today. It walks with us today. And George Weah and his gang of thieves and neophytes and dimwits, they represent that threat to all the democratic gains that we have made, to all the billions of dollars that were poured into bringing peace and stability back to our country. And thanks to the magnanimity and the support of the Liberian people, the confluence with of support from the Liberians and the support from the international people to bring this democracy to where it's at. Today, President Weah threatens it. Yesterday, what we witnessed at Roots FM, even if you don't like Henry Costa, you don't like Fidel Sadi, but you cannot ignore in good conscience that what happened yesterday was acceptable. Armed men led by a well-known and infamous, notorious ex-rebel general, Augustine Nagbe, aka General Powell. He was there leading those men while we were on the air broadcasting, breaking into our radio station in broad daylight. Such brazen, audacious, and foolhardy clampdown. And within 35-40 minutes, after struggling on the steel gate, they managed to tear down the steel gate, entered our premises, cut the transmitter cable, shut everything off, and made away with our broadcast equipment. Now, you don't have to like Henry Costa, but can you support that sort of behavior? And what is our charge? They didn't serve us any rate. There was no rate from the court, no warrant. What's our charge? That we're operating illegally? And some of you want to believe that we, Roots FM, were operating illegally? How can an illegal entity pay taxes to the government? How can an illegal entity have a license given by the government? How can an illegal entity have a letter, a permit from the Minister of Information, Len Eugene Nangbe, from this administration? How could we operate illegally when we were given permits, a permit to broadcast, and a frequency from the LTA? How is that possible? Cannot be possible. Now let me take some time to let you know how Roots FM came about. When President Weah came to power, some of us who did not support him in the first round of the elections decided that the man has won. We vociferously and passionately campaigned against his election. But the Liberian people felt that, at least in a sizable number, that he was what they wanted. And with the help of Mr. Sirleaf, he's president of the country. So we might as well accept that. And let's give him a shot. Let's give him a shot. So when the government reached out to me through my friend Nathaniel McGill, the Minister of State, said, Costa, you didn't support us, but now we are here. We need your support to help drive the government's agenda. Samuel D12 reached out to me, Pedro, we need you. I said, well, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. You all remember, at the time we did not have Roots FM on the air. I said, gentlemen, in order to support you, I need my frequency returned to me. Johnson Saliba shut down Voice FM, you all remember. The same frequency, 102.7. I said to them, I need my frequency returned. President Weah was very happy that I had offered to support them upon their request to support their administration. Nathaniel McGill was instructed by the president to order or to instruct Lenny Eugene Nangbe, the Minister of the Minister of Information, to reissue my permit. Eugene Nangbe wrote the permit and gave it to me. Nathaniel McGill also instructed the chairperson of LTA, the Liberia Telecommunications Authority, to reissue my license. They asked us to simply write a letter for the purpose of formality. Do a letter to the LTA Ivan Brown requesting the reissuance or reassignment of 102.7. 102.7 was reassigned by the LTA. George Weah gave the instruction. George Weah. And then, of course, the rest is history. We supported the government. We spoke for them. Sometimes we were fed lies, which we fed you, for which we are very, very ashamed of ourselves. Because there will be times Samuel Twe will tell us things to say that will turn out to not be true. Or McGill will tell us things to say that will turn out to not be true. Or George Weah himself will tell him things that will turn out to not be true. And every time we would advise them to refuse to listen to us, I decided to pull back my support. By the time we already had the frequency. So they couldn't take the frequency back from us because we had legally obtained or re-obtained the frequency. We became critical of the administration. You all know that. They did not shut us down. They did not ask us for the return of the frequency. On numerous occasions, they offer more. They made more offers. Can we put you on a payroll? The last offer that was made to me was made by Nathaniel McGill and Samuel D12. They offered to give me $10,000 every month for the purpose of propagating government's agenda and to leave the opposition so that the opposition may die. In their minds, they think that somehow the Costa Show helps the opposition. Yes, we do, but we are not the central figure in the opposition. If we left the opposition would go on without us because there are strong men and women there, some of whom are way more sophisticated than us and can propagate their agenda much more effectively than we can. But they believe that if we left the opposition would die. That's what they believe. So they made offers. And we turned down those offers. When the June 7th protest was called by us on this very Costa Show, in the beginning, the honor estimated it. In the end, you saw what the people did. According to writers and other international media who descended on Monrovia to cover this event, global coverage, 20,000 people turned out. The largest peaceful protest in the history of our country. Not a single incident of violence was reported. We received a superfluous outpouring of commendations from the international community, thanking us for the peaceful conduct exhibited on June 7th. We presented our petition statement. It was ignored. Before I went to Liberia, I flew in from Delaware to New York and then to Ghana. Nathaniel McGill and Samuel Twe sent an emissary to meet me in Ghana on May 15, 2019. The emissary came and they offered, Costa, we can offer you $200,000 so that you can boycott the protest, so that you cannot be part of the protest. And I said, how is that possible? It was the Costa show that called the protest. How can a Costa show distance itself from the protest now? They say, oh, pretend that you're sick. Take some pictures lying on a hospital bed and say that you are sick. And I said, I can't do that. And so we went to Monrovia the next day, May 16, to a rousing reception by thousands of our friends and our compatriots. And then on June 7th, history was made by the Liberian people. Ever since, the government has seen us as a threat. But let me tell you, why did the government shut us down? Why? What specific reasons factors that recently precipitated the government to orchestrate this brazen act of cowardice and lawlessness and dictatorship? Two events, two reasons fundamentally. Yes, you all agree that the government finds us unacceptable. They cannot live with us. They cannot live with having us on the air and exposing them, and even sometimes helping to point them into the right direction, which they often ignore. But these two reasons fundamentally are why the government moved in yesterday to shut us down. Number one, on Thursday of last week, October the 3rd, after a month of hospitalization of our dear sister Justina Taylor, who, after making some startling revelations, was mysteriously kidnapped the very night after she made the revelations. She was drugged. She was raped, gang raped, I might add, sedated with some terrible substance that caused damage to her spine, hopefully reparable damage. And some guy, one of her abusers, grew a conscience, grew a heart, and decided to rescue her. And Justina was brought over and dropped on the roadside, and he asked a taxi driver to take her away. And this taxi driver made away with Justina Taylor to the nearby police station in Painesville. When she got there, I was contacted that she was there. And I drove and myself personally admitted her at the Cali Hospital. Made the first deposit. After a month-long treatment with no real significant improvement to give her a serious shot at full. Justina, thanks to the generosity of family and friends here in the United States, decided to work on her papers, find a hospital willing to treat her here in the States, decided to apply for a visa for her. Justina Taylor went overseas. The United States Embassy granted Justina emergency visa interview. It's a period of 3 days. Within which, on one of those 3 days, you must show up. She was supposed to go to the hospital. The government prevented her. We talked about it, but passively. The second day, they stopped her again. They threatened that the moment she stepped outside from the hospital, they would arrest her. They had armed PSU officers deployed at the hospital during the entire duration that Justina was
man? How's it? Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you for coming. It's all not shaking out.
Oh, I know.
So respect you.
We're doing the Korean thing.
I know everybody is checking that. Yes, anyway, good to have you. Thank you very much.
Good morning, I'm David Kuti once again. I'm a Christian, but there's one place I agree with the Muslims on the dead body issue. You know, I don't like to see people spending so much money for the dead. It's useless. Now, the worst thing about it is that sometimes somebody is sick. Nobody is going to that person's assistance.
Okay, Mr. Kuti, how do you want to be buried when you die?
I don't even want to die.
No, but you die.
No, but don't even ask me how I want to. Don't be like Robin White who asked President Taylor one time, how do you think you would die?
Because
I'm not even thinking about death, then you ask me how do I want to be died.
listen, you said one thing you like about the Muslim way of disposing of the dead is the simple way. So
One thing I like about the Muslim,
I'm asking now, when you die, how you want to be buried?
I don't want to die. Don't mention that. Don't even bring that question to me. I'm not even thinking about death.
Sorry, sir. Death is an inevitable end.
That's your business, but don't ask me about death. I don't want to die. Let me tell you one thing. I love the Muslims I'm on the line with the Muslims on the death body issue.
Okay.
Now, I don't see the reason why people buy golden casket and golden coffins. Well, too much unnecessary spending. And the worst thing that can really get, this is why I don't go to work. I don't go to funerals. It's very difficult for me.
Because you're afraid of death.
No, not only that. I don't like to hear some of the praises people give to people when they didn't give it right away in life.
But of course, death is an inevitable end. We all will die. There is one thing that is certain about death: it will come, but we don't know where, how, and when it will come. Good morning, Liberia, and good morning to my many followers on SoundCloud this morning. My name is Mama D. This is the Truth Breakfast Show. Today, we are privileged to have with us the Vice President of the Republic of Liberia, who has accepted graciously
to be on this network this morning to talk about a recent trip to the U.S., the U.S. Africa Leadership Summit, and which was called by U.S. President Barack Obama. A Center on Trade, Investment and Security. Vice President Joseph Boakai has accepted to talk about it, of course, discuss the issues that pop up at that great gathering of leaders. Good morning, Honorable Vice President. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning, Mamadi.
How do you feel this morning?
I feel good.
Except the Ebola wahala that is distracting our way of life.
That's what we're fighting at. So we believe that too will come to pass.
Okay, did they in any way come up? Because Solo was sharing a joke with me the other time that you and the two other presidents from the region were placed in one corner.
Well,
was that a quarantine?
I think maybe they wanted to put their attention on us. Obama was presiding over one of the sessions, the first session, and normally the sitting arrangement is by countries, but this time around President Conte's chair, my chair, then Sierra Leone. So Conte look at me, love to say, look like they're trying to put all the Ebola countries one side. But anyway, that changed when we went to the second session.
I didn't notice that perhaps you were not happy with the setting.
You know, I needed people to understand that this was a disaster, like a hurricane, like a flood, a tsunami, and I made them to know that Ebola was not going to define Liberia, just like the tsunami did not define Japan, like the Katrina did not define America, that this was a disaster and this too will be a thing of the past. So we stay resilient and we will live after this.
And I like that. Very soon they're going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah, sure.
We are very resilient people who are going to fight. Again, let me say thank you for accepting our invitation to sit with us. This demonstrates your passion in and sharing the good news with our people. Because you already know, we the media, we are the bridge between the governors and the governed. Again, we are happy for your presence. Let's start on the overall. What will be your summary of the meeting? Was it a successful one? What do we expect as a continent and as a country?
I think the Americans have realized that they were getting a little bit behind in investing in Africa. That they've seen the Chinese, the Indians, the Brazilians, and other countries were getting ahead of them, coming into Africa to invest, and Obama felt that this was an opportunity for the U.S. African leaders. It was a groundbreaking event because this was the first in history to have about 50 heads of state and government to the invitation of the Americans to sit with business people, sit and discuss what were critical issues for development in Africa. And we share our ideas, not just investing, but also helping Africa to open opportunities to development. And we talk about some of the things that were also obstructing development, like the conflicts, and that we look at everything and then open the corridor for us to be able to discuss openly. And they were to look at their own resources and how they could partner with us. We were not talking about aid, we're not talking about relief, we're talking about investment. And it went on very well. Some of the presidents were very candid in saying, look, you waited too long. I mean, China is already building our railways. And then so Obama said, well, yeah, we don't want to say they should not be a part, but we want to be able to also come on board.
Okay, like you said, I think America is seeing that China is making some strong efforts in getting to Africa. So do we have any sense of feeling, at least in the region of the American, that they have some regrets why they didn't come earlier?
Well, I think the Americans, their understanding of Africa, they are being able to enter into African market because of all the difficulties we have. They talk about corruption, they talk about infrastructure, but these are the things that the other people see also, and they still come on board. And I usually tell them, when we meet, they start asking about China and all of this, I tell them, my idea is you don't curse the darkness, you turn the light on.
Of course.
So instead of sitting there and complaining, you do something. You know very well, we've had the longest standing relation with the United States.
Liberia.
By now, one would have thought that there would be a lot of American companies here. The oldest, the only one they have was Firestone. Even that now is Bridgestone from the Japanese. So, I mean, nobody has stopped them. So we may be a small market, but I always say if you want to consider Liberia, consider us as a region. Whatever happens here happens in Guinea, Sierra Leone, and we talk about 20 million people within this region. I mean, we are a sizable market. And also, we're talking about partnering a way that we can work, Liberians can partner and do things at our level. So that's what the other people see, and that's what they should be looking at. They, instead of putting all the restrictions, they should look at the opportunities and work with us.
Okay, I want to get a picture of the summit because I understand there was some low profile from many of the participants. Was there a big hall where Obama sat at the table and the African leaders were putting their hands up to make comment, or a one-on-one engagement? Because I understand, apart from Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya, not many African countries made strong representation.
No, that's not. I mean, well, you're talking about in terms of the number of people, but only a certain number of people were allowed into the hall, heads of state, and so it wasn't everybody was going. There were side meetings.
Okay.
For example, when I got there, the first thing that we did was to have interviews with CNN, interview with BBC, interview with Bloomberg, and several other interviews. But also, I spoke at the Mercy Corps invitation talking about youth. I also spoke at the George Soros invitation talking about extractive industry, transparency. I spoke at another meeting that has to do with peace and security with respect to the African Common Position. So there were quite a number of that participated in, but the actual meeting was presided over with 3 sessions presided over by Obama. The first took place about 2 hours. We broke up, then we went to another session for about another 2 hours, then we broke up. Then we went into the final section for a roundup. So it was all heads of state with their seconded person sitting behind, so it wasn't everybody that went. So you could have carried 100 people, but only
different meetings, different.
Because you're talking about 50 convoy. I mean, they can only carry a certain number of people, so people were restricted as to how many.
Yeah, no commuters in Washington have problems seeing a lot of African presidents.
Well, I think it happened that we most of the people were in the Washington area because you have to pick you up in the morning in the convoy, and the times were very strict, and they take you there, and then you participate, and then later on, what was always difficult was the time to draft the people. Because you have 50 convoy to line it up.
I know.
By the time you get to, that's why I was a little bit off the time with the town hall meeting.
Okay, let us talk about the meet. You know, Europe and Africa has a very long history. You know of us, of course, that the Europeans were here in 1885. They met in Berlin to divide Africa. And now China is moving forward with an annual investment of over $200 billion here on the continent. America has been sitting all these years watching China making moves on the continent. With this summit, are we now seeing a competition or a rush to divide Africa among these 3 giants and global actors, as China, Europe, and of course the US?
You know, the whole idea is that the United States felt that they had easy markets in Latin America. They had the market that were very close to them, and so they didn't bother much about coming to Africa. I don't think the Africans are looking forward to be colonized again.
I mean, economically.
Well, I think this time around we're talking about investment. We're talking about partnership. We're talking about helping us with money to open our roads, to put power, because electricity is one of the biggest problems, the real obstacle to investment in Africa, and we in Liberia are very, very much aware of that. So Power Africa was when Obama visited Ghana and Tanzania and Kenya, and Senegal rather, and he promised that they will work with African countries to improve their capacity in electricity, and that Power Africa was the main source of discussion. But then again, you invest in Africa, you have to consider all the critical areas: peace, security, the basic things that Africa is noted for, like the mineral resources and also the agricultural potential. So all of these, everybody was presenting what they believe was critical to them, although we all agree that power was very much important, infrastructure improvement was critical, but it was the overall discussion on what will make the United States be able to work with Africans. But you will know that they are talking about investment that will also benefit the great United States because it will create jobs there. Are you talking about power? You're talking
it's
about
mutual.
General Electric come in and invest in, and you're talking about $26 billion or of the kind. Most of that money will come in. Will create jobs in their home country too. So they are quite aware that while they talk about Africa, they're also talking about opening up opportunities for their own people.
On the overall, you think Africa is doing well with this relationship with China? You think we can afford leaving China to go to the U.S.?
I think one of the things that we always have to do is that when we're dealing with people, we must also know that our own interests come first. I sat in a meeting where the Chinese and I were talking, and they were talking about, they say, we do not invest in countries just for country's sake. We invest in countries for their resources. And I said, you are correct. We too, we partnership with people for what we can get in terms of technical knowledge and in terms of reward for the resources that we have. So your concern, our concern, they are all the same in that we want to benefit our countries and our respective people. So it is the same that we look at the United States, as big as they are. It has to be an investment that will benefit our people, benefit our, they know that 60% of our society is young people, and we have the potential and we have the resources. So we are not going to encourage an investment that will not yield a lot to the sector of our people. So it is not the matter of coming and taking, it's the matter of putting money to be able to empower people, to create opportunities for generation unborn to benefit from.
Okay, I sense a little bit that the U.S. is trying to grab Africa because Barack Obama, in an interview with The Economist, said, and I quote, he was trying to advise African leaders. He said, ensure that local workers benefit from the infrastructure projects and that the roads shouldn't just leave from the mine to the port to Shanghai. And I think that's a smart reference to Chinese infrastructure on the continent, which has been criticized by some people as not being too good. So do you see any way whether the Americans are trying to tell you, leave China, come to us, we'll give you the best?
Well, I don't think that any country, anybody will come and invest in your country only because you are a beautiful country that they want you. You should know that investment wants to yield reward. We should be prepared to negotiate. I don't care whether it's America, I don't care who it is. At the end of the day, the resources that leave the country must show results that remain on the ground for themselves. So even with China, they might say the Chinese come, they bring their people, but we should be able to negotiate in the interest of our country. So I don't really care whether it's America, whether it's Germany. We have to know that at the end of it, when the resources are gone, these people will go and we have nothing to show. Okay. So we must be able to negotiate in the best interest of our country.
I think that's the point.
Mr. Vice President, you talk about commitment by the U.S. government specifically in the energy sector. But when do we hope to see this these commitments coming to fruition?
That's a good question. And normally these discussions take place. You meet with the electricity companies that are willing to come on board. The discussions are over. We want to see the follow-up. That is, negotiations are already on the way. Like in Nigeria, they already have started investing there. We in Liberia too, there's an MOU signed already. So our ministers are there to do the follow-up. The president has already signed the MOU. So we need electricity, we need power, like say maybe 10 years ago. So we're not going to rest until we make sure that this becomes a reality in a short time.
And how much is being committed to the entire process? The energy sector?
Well, the energy sector is under the supervision of the Ministry of Lands and Mines, but it is not just left wholly and solely with the Ministry of Lands and Mines. We have to make sure that these things are followed up, and that this time around we are on target with our negotiations.
As a Vice President, you had a meeting with George Soros, and give us some outcome of this meeting.
What happened is that I went to George Soros and presented a paper on the extractive industries, how we in Liberia were committed to transparency, and how we on record for being recognized as such, and how we were being we were reporting the income generated from the extractive industries, and with a few concern and participation of the public, how there's even a youth sector now that is interested in that. They have a club that goes through the knowledge of what the extractive industries are doing. And George Soros is, he has a foundation, OSIWA, that is responsible for monitoring the use of resources in a transparent way for the benefit of the country. And we made a presentation. I think he and I spoke, and I had another meeting I had to run to. So after I made my presentation, we left the papers, we left the hall. The discussions were going, and some of our ministers were sitting there, and I went to another meeting. But I think our paper was the only paper that was delivered there, and I believe it gave an insight as to what we were doing, and the discussions were what else could be done. I heard George Soros spoke mostly about investment in agriculture, which is always one of those things that I believe is the sure way to develop in this country, to open up opportunities. So I wasn't there for the full discussion after my presentation.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So basically, let's move to another point, which has to do with governance. Because no matter what happens, if the governance structure is not in a good outlook, it becomes a problem. Corruption, I'm talking about. Was there any discussion about transparency throughout these meetings?
All of those things came to play. I mean, the Americans had always referred to corruption as one of those reasons why there hadn't been much participation yet. Those issues were raised, but of course, I mean, people will always put up counter arguments, but it is true that corruption is a problem in Africa, like it is many other places, but we have to continue to fight with that. We have to continue to be transparent, because as you invite other people to invest, they want to make sure that their resources are going into the areas, that there are no kickbacks, that they don't have to get money under the table to be able to enter the market. So their concerns were raised, and we were inviting them to make sure that we all sit around the table and make sure that that happens, because corruption, as you will see it, may not only be on one side. They themselves, we have a lot of these NGOs that come here, and we still got to see how much money they put into this country, the quality of programs. I see a lot of wells. You see the signboards, you go there, they are dry. We all have to also make sure that they come to the table with their hands clean.
But that has to do with your monitoring capacity.
Well, of course.
As a government.
This is what we're talking about. So those that are responsible for monitoring, those that are beneficiaries of the program, they should be able to make sure that they get what is said to be there. It's a two-way thing.
You know, the reason that I push that point, you know, Africa is a good place to do business according to the numbers. 6 of the 10 biggest economy, fast-growing economies, you know, are found on this continent. But yet still, the living condition of the black man in Africa has not been able to improve. We just see the investors come, they get the resources, they go, and after several years, we still at point zero.
One of the questions I asked was that, what if you were to give money to a bank here to give loan to somebody in Vanyama or maybe in Kawikian, and you tell them to do business? When you give this loan, there's no electricity, the roads are not good. How do you intend for them to use this money, generate profit, and be able to repay? The first thing here, take an investor who invests money here. The electricity bill alone wipes up the entire investment. What do you do? So why it is true that you talk about investment. One time I told Tony Blair, the group that came, I said, yeah, do you mind come and ask us what is happening? Well, why not go up country and find out what is happening? The first difficulty you have is getting there. So you must be able to go to those who are benefiting to see whether you are able to reach there to find out what they're doing with the money that you need. We need infrastructure. We need for the people up country to be rich, to be blessed with some electricity and things that will make business possible and investment to prosper and benefit them.
Do we have any follow-up mechanism for this conference? Because I understand there were no final communique.
Well, it certainly will come. This was a huge conference with a lot of details, with a lot of, as much as America is sophisticated, it would take a while to compile this report, and then it will deal with country to country. Maybe there will be an approach to how Power Africa will work, whether we work on a regional basis like we're doing. But again, you're talking about individual countries. We want it and we want it now. So those details will have to be worked out. It will take a while.
Mr. Vice President, you have gone to the United States at the time the outbreak of this deadly Ebola virus. Did you have the opportunity to talk to Barack Obama on the situation?
Well, the first thing is that he shook my hands and said, welcome, and we know that your country has went through a problem. The president could not come, but let me assure you that we'll work with you. Yeah. We talk with officials, the congressionals, we talk with some of the secretaries of state, like Linda, who used to be here. They came by the hotel. So the issues are known, and in fact, when I was coming on the plane, we already had the Center for Disease Control had already sent a team to come and do an assessment. So they know very well that the situation there is very critical. That's the first and foremost thing we have to tackle before we even talk about what's supposed to happen after that. So it is true that that we discuss with them at length.
Okay. This is also intended to have interaction with our people, to ask a question about the trip. So we're going to take a few calls. Then, of course, you can respond to some of the concern. Again, thank you very much for being here, Vice President Joseph Boakai. 0777-1730-15.
0777-469793.
Okay, you can call to talk to your Vice President. Let me get this first one through. So we're going to take 5 calls. Valai Dole, good morning.
Good morning, Normally, and good morning, Honorable Vice President.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity. Honorable Vice President, I just want to give my own comment on this China-Africa relations and America's involvement with respect to, the trade, investment, and aid over the past of time. And I have some questions for you. One, the issue of China having solid foundation in terms of our infrastructure development are based on 2 things. One, our technicians or those that are supposed to serve as monitor and evaluator, they've not been able to have the technical know-how to tell the Chinese what we need. Both other countries in Africa, for example, in South Africa, in Kenya, in Zambia, the Chinese built very nice infrastructure there. But because people in the localities understand the theory, understand their technical know-how, at the end, they work with the Chinese in making sure that what they need in WA, it does not happen that way. We do not have to do with the technical know-how, and the Chinese will not build good things. Another thing what the Chinese do is the issue of our PPP, our purchasing power parity. We have a very low purchasing power. So the Chinese will be the tier of first-class material in our country based on our purchasing power. So you find these things all around. So the best thing we do in order to empower our people, we'll be able to educate them in all of the technical areas. So when you go in line with the Chinese on the table to discuss some of the infrastructure development, they will tell the Chinese, this is what we need, and we think this is the best thing for us. Now, my question to you, Honorable Vice President, you then following the final Africa relation, that is China-Africa Summit, and also the recent one you just had, the first time with the African leader in America. Now, my question is, what are new elements that you learned from the Americas present meeting with that of China? Because China, based on 3 principles that you know about, mutual understanding, a win-win approach, and not interfering into internal politics. What are new things that you learn from the Washington's consensus as compared to the Beijing consensus?
Thank you.
God bless you.
So, yeah, and good morning. You'd like to walk away from where you are, you come in, just start to... Good morning, you're live.
Thank you, Mr. Law. President.
Good morning.
By the way, this is Noah Zawukinsin. I'm interested in this whole China intervention into Africa, and where they talked about sometimes building a structure here that should have been the second largest EU headquarters in Addis Ababa. That is the much talked about in the Syria complex. How far are we now? Because I'm a supporter of this government. I'm interested in seeing the best from this government as it relates to that. How far are we? Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Sir, and 077746793. Yeah.
Biancota.
Yeah, good morning.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Honorable Vice President. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Brian.
Well, let me say welcome back to Liberia and congratulate you for ably representing the Republic of Liberia in the United States. Let me say that Ebola is not killing us, God forbid, but Ebola has increased the vulnerability of the already vulnerable people. My concern is, in fact, it's an appeal that you really consider doing something about, helping those who are not moving, those who are not able to move in the state of emergency, those who livelihood have become extremely difficult, because many of us are not moving. Even those of us who are capable to move and help who need it, we too are not moving. So kindly look into this. Thank you, and God bless you, and God bless our nation.
Thank you, Mr. Peter. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, you're live.
Yeah, good morning, sir. My name is Redmond again. I call from Hotel Africa.
Go ahead, Ramon.
Okay, yeah. I must commend His Excellency, Mr. Bogart, for the level of hard work. Even though he went to America, he came back. But one thing that ran on my mind this morning when I heard from you people saying that, even from hearing on the radio, saying that the vaccine will be given, but people should sign because they don't really trust the vaccine for people to take it, or the trust people to take it to be well on the virus issue. So I really want you to explain one of the
We'll send it to the minister we have. And, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Bowen, and I call from Kingston.
Go ahead, Bowen.
I want to extend gratitude to the Vice President for ably representing us in the Americas. My question is, why has it been so difficult for our resources to really affect the lives of the common man in Liberia? What has really been our problem? How does our government now intend to resolve this problem? Should the Americans come to invest in our country so that the investment will not be like Obama said, concessional belief and to the country where it is designated.
I think your question is clear. What can we do to impact the lives of the people from our natural resources? Good morning, Pee Wee.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Vice President, and I was saying uncle. This is Mr. Pee Wee.
Okay.
Mr. Vice President, let me congratulate you first and foremost as to the way you compose yourself with the period of time as the Vice President of our country. I would love to be a bit normally. I hope you've given the time to answer this.
You gotta be brief.
Just what came from the United States, the American African Summit. I think he was among one of leaders, African leaders per se. Mr. Vice President, if you were president of this country, between America and China, which side actually will you turn in terms of the country, the two countries, which side will you turn to see as a strong partner?
Okay.
To Liberia.
Thank you very much. But I think he talked about that earlier on. Good morning.
Good morning, Mama B. This is Augustine and I'm from the Capital Purpose.
Augustine, you're welcome. Go ahead.
Well, there's 2 points I actually got from the Vice President that I want to highlight as in regard to this investment issue regarding our country.
Which
issue? As you may know, Liberia.
Which issue are you referring to?
Has up to, hello?
Which issue?
Liberia currently has up to 16 billion investment for over 60 companies. And the Vice President has said many of these discussions are tied around impacting the over 60% young people population of our country. And looking from 2008 to now, many of the investments that have been done in our country has not actually taken over the needed human resource capacity that we need in our country, especially in line with employment. So I feel there's still need for further assessment in terms of investment portfolio. One of the things that we've seen is companies have started entering the concession of our government and do not have the capacity in terms of the investment portfolio or finances to come and invest. Many of them can go back to the World Trade Center to go check for additional investment and come back and what so forth.
Okay,
so I believe that
you've made a point. We have a lot of persons waiting to contribute. Wilfred Bangura.
Thank you, Mamadi. Good morning, and good morning to His Excellency the Vice President. Joining you from Painesville. As I got the Vice President quite right, he made a very serious point when he stated that nowadays in Africa, particularly Liberia, their government is no longer interested in who comes to invest here. What they are interested in is what are you going to leave behind in terms of the tangibles, the infrastructure, the impact that you will make on the population here. I see that as a dramatic paradigm shift, for which I want to congratulate the Vice President for. I believe that if this had been the policy of governments in Liberia, we would have been far ahead by now, but it's never too late. So, Mr. Vice President, we want to take our hats off to you. This is the way to begin. This is the right trajectory. So we want to support this government on that particular policy philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's it. You've had the time to talk to your Vice President. Mr. Vice President, you good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Go ahead.
My name is Locke Douglas.
Go ahead.
My question to the Vice President this morning, I give him congratulations for coming back from the national issue. My question to him this morning is that what plan, what mechanism the government is putting in place so that when the investor comes, that will lead Liberia in, will have to shoot something. So this is what the company is like. And for instance, what happened in Lima, the citizens, some of them came up in the country of reflect. Some of them went on
Okay. All right. Thank you, my brother. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Vice President.
Yeah.
You listen to your people.
Sure.
The questions. I think you were taking notes, so.
Well, I tried to.
Okay.
The first question, if I didn't get all the points, maybe you can remind me.
Okay.
I think the question was the quality of work. When I went to China one time, I told the Chinese, when you come to Liberia, you're building a road. Don't say a building road for Liberia. I say, I see your road. We want quality. And I tell you honestly, this is one thing I cannot compromise on. I don't see any reason why anybody should give us substandard work. And for example, I have interacted with the Minister of Commerce on many occasions. People think that when we get a padlock on your door for $5, they forget that sometimes you change that lock 6 times.
Yes.
You pay $30 plus workmanship. Why do you settle for something that is not quality? I think people who monitor the government, who work in the government, should understand that we deserve quality. Liberians have always settled for quality. And I can agree with them that we should be demanding that. Now, the other person talked about the ministerial complex. I think this ministerial complex has been a long-drawn concern. Where will be, when will they start? The Chinese have also been asking those questions. But I think where we are, I haven't consulted the Minister of Public Works. But I hate to be talking about one thing over and over and over. It is about time that they start. So we will be brief, because normally we get briefing sessions where we are told when different projects will start. We haven't done that. But I think the ministerial complex is everything that people are looking up to, even the Capitol building project. The last time I visited the the MVTC, that was progressing well, and I understand that around maybe September or so that might be turned over. So people want to see these projects, and they want to see them happen now. Talk about the Ebola. It's not killing Benin-Kotra, but you're talking about the vulnerable people. I couldn't agree with him more, because every Friday I have some of the blind fellows near my car. Probably this time they may not be able to move around. I think he had drawn our attention to a very, very important sector of our society, and I think we should be reaching out to them. There's a point well made, and even today, I see some women that stand by the fish market. I've taken some chlorine and some rice.
To them.
I'll be dropping that as I come from the place. I think these are the people that we need to cater to. Talk about why is it difficult for people who come to work here. How is it difficult to see some of the things that are done here, the investment and teaching the lives of our people? I want to believe that way back, the Arab world said, before the oil, nobody knew us, and after the oil, nobody will know us. People must always remember that when you have the resources, you have to make sure that they are used in the best interest of that country.
And that duty is imposed on you, the leaders.
Everything, because when you don't have it, there's nothing to show. And I think this is what all of us should come to government to make sure that our people's lives are touched with what happened to the country. And that's my belief, and this is what I've always been committed to. And it is not difficult for people to ask that we make sure that the thing that happen in the country must touch the life. This is the reason why I've always believed in training our young people, preparing them so that they are capable. I will be one of those to say, this is about time that we send our young people in the best engineering schools, medical schools, for them to gain technical knowledge. And we've done that. You hear the story of a young man that I sent to China, who got his PhD in oil engineering. He's now with Nucal.
Good.
And we've been doing a number of that because at the end of the day, I don't care who comes here. They come here because of the benefit you have here. You have to train your own people for them to take over the economy, for them to take over the technology. You're not going to know how much oil you have unless these are the things that we should be doing. Which side to turn, whether it's the United States or China, the only side to turn is the maximum benefit to this country. We don't care who you are, but we should negotiate in the best interest of our country. Whether it's China, whether it's the United States, that's what should be our...
Great. Mr. Vice President, I should have asked this question earlier. What are the composition of your delegation? Did you have anybody from the business community and the rest of them? At least to interact, saying it was a business and investment.
In this particular case, we have mostly people who were going to interact with the investors from the government side.
Okay.
I should probably know I didn't initially structure the delegation. Mm-hmm. The president should have gone, but because of this emergency, I was asked to go, and I tell you, it was the real last minute. So, but we believe that Minister of Land, Mines, the ministries that had to do with all these technical areas, they were all represented.
Mr. Vice President, this is a consensus all around the country. There are certain things every Liberian is very much sure about. That you are a very quiet Vice President, you are a very strong person. You've done your best so far. When you shall have ended this job, what do you want Liberia to remember you for?
It's a very good thing. You know, in all my life, I've always believed that whatever, whether I'm in a hotel somewhere, sitting down there, if it's a good hotel, I say, I wish this were in Liberia. I work in the agriculture sector. Had it not been for the war, you would have seen that our PMC left an indelible mark on the lives of the people. The cocoa farms that we made, the coffee farms, were benefiting people. I like to see that what we do can spread and touch the lives of our people, like somebody has said. I've always said, I consider life like you take a group picture, you put it on the bulletin board. People come and look at a picture. If their face is not fine, the picture is not fine. When people's lives are not touched, they don't believe anything has happened. This is what I would like to see. Touching the lives of people. See that during a certain period that you served, that their lives were transformed, that they too have something they can be proud of.
That is, you want to be remembered for touching the lives of Liberians. And I'm sure you are on the right trajectory. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President, for coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's how we bring down the curtain onto this presentation of the show. Thank to George Sar, thank to Mr. Kesadi for arranging this interaction with Liberia's Vice President. I have been Mamadi. Inshallah, I will be here tomorrow morning along with my friend and brother Solomon Ware, who wish you the best. Please, in everything you do today, remember that Ebola is raging and be careful.
like some of the candidates, they may be more qualified than me. But in pushing the agenda for development, education is very important, but we need men and things in Liberia is different. The people are yearning for people that feel the pain they feel, that share the same situation, that speak the language that they speak. And if you have 3 master's degrees and you cannot understand the language that they speak back home, my brother, you cannot leave from America and become a representative overnight with your 3 PhDs. You've got to get involved. You've got to get involved in youth empowerment. You have to get involved in women empowerment. Our mothers have suffered too much in that country. And there is a need. We talk about the 1325 UN chapter, wherein America and other countries spend a whole lot of money to talk about the women colloquium. But again, the issue of segregation in our country is another problem. Well, people feel that to become a senator, you have to have such a name. You got to be this, you got to be that. But we have breaking the barriers. Somebody, somewhere, had to put the name of Dol Sharif on the map. We did not do it because we had state resources. Neither did we do it because we were overqualified. It happened because there was a vacuum between the downtrodden masses and those that have. And there still exists a vacuum between the government and the people of Liberia. And if we as a people cannot fill up this vacuum,